Welcome to the MSP Xperience Game Changers, innovative thinkers in the MSP space. This is a limited edition series presented by Axcient, your trusted partner for comprehensive BCDR solutions for MSPs. I am your host, Robert Cioffi, the CTO and co-founder of Progressive Computing, Inc., an MSP based in New York, established in 1993. So what is Game Changers? Simply put, Game Changers is a video series designed to bring some of the most innovative thinkers in the MSP space into one-on-one conversations with another MSP leader. Our topics are carefully cultivated to push the envelope for MSPs, to discuss real-world problems we're facing, and to hear from industry experts on how to overcome these challenges in interesting and innovative ways. Today's episode is Cracking the Growth Formula, and our special guest is Michelle Ragusa-McBain of SonicWall. Welcome, Michelle. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you, Robert. I'm so honored to be a part of this wonderful series. It's for such a great cause, helping our managed service providers really grow and become more enabled and more profitable. And so I'm happy to help if I can in that area. And I am really excited. I've been a part of SonicWall for the last year, and I've been part of the tech channel for 20 years. But there's really something special about SonicWall. It's a wonderful company and culture, and we've really leaned into reimagining our people, our programs, and our technology to help our partners be more successful. So I'm really excited to be a part of the series. Thank you for having me.
I'm very delighted that you're here, Michelle. And, when I was thinking about who to invite on for this particular series, I thought about you because you've got, you've sort of, I don't want to say the outsider, that's not the right word, but you've got the inside view of what sales looks like, or business development, channel development. And I thought it'd be interesting to get your experience to see how that might translate into growing an MSP, right? Because many of us, as I'll set the stage, start our business because we have great technical skills and we naturally attract clients by word of mouth. And suddenly one day wake up, realizing we've got this bona fide business on our hands, but it needs to grow. And so your obvious experience in sales related roles, and now as the VP of Global Channels for SonicWall, did I get that right?
You did? Yes. Sure did.
I mean, that's amazing. So your career not only involves growing sales at your company by helping MSPs be successful in a channel, but I thought like that could translate well to MSPs. So just let me start with the honest question of where do you think most MSPs owners rate in their ability to do sales, right? What are their strengths and weaknesses when it comes to growing their business?
Yeah. So I've actually had experience as well as a consultant where I worked kind of autonomously and agnostically for, Tech Data and Ingram and a lot of the big vendors and all of their MSP partners. And in that time, I would ask a lot of questions like, who do you sell and what do you sell it to? And the responses would be interesting because it would be something to the effect of, I sell all the things to all the people in all the world. Well, that really narrows it down, So I think the biggest issue is, from like a sales or marketing standpoint, knowing your audience, right? Like, where is your sweet spot? Where is your expertise? Are you fantastic at selling to healthcare in upstate New York? Or are you kind of a generalist expert in maybe state, local education, and you work in the lower 8 states and you've grown to that size? And so most managed service providers are regionalized. We know that. Some have become national or even international, but the majority of managed service providers are really, and as New Yorkers, the guy or the gal that is the trusted advisor to their end customers. And if you look at your end customers and identify, like in a marketing word, their persona, then you really need to understand, like, who are they that you typically work with, right? Because if you ask yourself that inherently honestly, you'd find that there's a sweet spot of the same types of customers with the same type of ideals, with the same type of needs, and then creating maybe thought leadership, marketing content, and other things to help them on their journey. So when they think about, what help do I need? You're the first person that comes to mind. That's I think the ideal goal, right? Figuring out who you're serving best And then secondly, from a sales standpoint, putting the right people with the right superpowers in the right positions. The average size of an MSP is an 8-person shop to a 15-person shop.
Right.
And that continues to grow as you scale. But who is your head of sales? Who's your head of marketing? Who's your head of customer success and keeping that customer happy and retaining them? Because you may wear a lot of hats, but that might not be the best skill set for what your customers need. And so can you hire the right roles for that superpower to help compensate and grow your business accordingly? I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
That last part is something I want to unpack further, but you said some very interesting things in the beginning of that answer about what I know, at least within my business, as the target customer profile. We follow EOS. I'm sure a lot of people know what that is, but even if you didn't, it's that persona, right? I'm just curious, Michelle, can you help break down, like, what do you think are some of those persona elements other than geography and, let's say, industry? You mentioned, like, hey, upstate healthcare providers, like that's two components. Like, what are some of the other things an MSP owner could do as an exercise to think about different personas and traits that they could eventually tune their sales skills or programs towards?
Right. I think there's a natural competency to what you're good at, but I also think you can expand your portfolio, your Rolodex, if you want to get old school, to partnership, right? So for example, at SonicWall, we have Lauren Wiege, who handles our state local education, and he works with Holly at Complement Consulting. And they work together to help managed service providers understand all of these state, local, and Federal Reserve grants that they are providing, some COVID relief grants, just some new things they've come up with to help education get caught up to speed. Because we know in a post-pandemic world, every company is now a tech company, right? Yeah. So if you have these skill sets and you say, okay, I know that there's this money out there that my customers can spend. And we saw in our threat report that came out recently that education's under siege, as an example. Like bad actors are going after them in ridiculous ways, really going after education of all ages and also governmental entities. And so how do we keep them safe and protected? And so you may or may not have those skill sets in-house, but how do you partner with somebody, a vendor that can help you provide that data to understand what opportunities are out there to lead into? Because maybe it's a budget issue, right? We know, I know my mom worked for the Board of Ed for 24 years. They weren't known for having exorbitant amounts of money, but it's needed, right? So what are some of the grants or funding that can be utilized so that they can have somebody explain to them what the challenges are out there, the impending threats are out there, and how they can lean into some of this governmental funding to help keep them safe and protected. So that would be an example, right, of how you can partner, ecosystem partner, right, with a vendor or with other, even other managed service providers that may have different specialties, right? So we focus on cybersecurity. We're 100% channel company. But as a managed service provider, you may have a lot of different things you focus on, from data disaster backup recovery to other pieces of that puzzle. So you have a lot in your stack, a lot of vendors that you're working with. And I would say you'd have to focus on what are the need to haves and what are the nice to haves, right? And as you create maybe a thought for your customers, what does that look like as a, in 0 to 3 months? What is the most important thing for you to put in? What's 3 to 6 months from now, 6 to 9 months from now? And I think the strategic vision of that roadmap for your customers and what that might look like today, tomorrow, and the future is really important as well, because it's constantly changing. Our ecosystem, our threat landscape, everything is evolving to the point where you need to be not only informed yourself, but able to be on the cutting edge of protecting your customers about those impending threats. And married to a Canadian, right? Skating to where the puck is going, where it is right now.
One of my favorite lines.
Yeah. So
it's very interesting because you hit on some of the things that were in my head today already. about how do we leverage our partnerships with vendors. If I may, as an example of I think what you're talking about, that probably a lot of MSPs could utilize. Like right now, we have partnerships with two different, I'll say, independent CTO, CIO kind of consultants, and when they go into an account, they're looking to potentially enhance that account by bringing in a local MSP. So I think is that a good example of what you mean by partnerships and
Yeah.
those relationships?
Absolutely, right? So it takes a lot of time, money, and effort to upskill your team on everything that they need to know, right? So you have to think about what do I want them to focus on as primary? What do I want them to be expert in? And what are the things maybe we can partner on that it's maybe low margin or not their sweet spot or not something that comes up too often, but there's somebody that's non-competitive that we can form a partnership and even lead sharing with, right? That could be something that you can do as well. So when they have an opportunity, they know that's your expertise. They bring you in and reciprocally so. So I think, it's really just looking at your in-house expertise, taking a real lens, pausing, and I say reimagining your people, your programs, your technology. What does that look like? We have to do that at SonicWall as well, right? We're most beloved for our firewalls for 33 years, but we recently made 2 acquisitions for Solutions Granted, for MDR, XDR, EDR, and for Banyan Security for Zero Trust SASE. Why? Because it's not just a firewall that's going to keep our customers and partners safe. We need to have multiple levels of security, of threat detection, of analytics. And in order to do that, we need to evolve our tech roadmap. We need to hire up the right people, the right skills. We need to look at our geographies we're covering. And make sure that we have the right people in the right positions at the right places. So we hired a new leader in EMEA, Spencer Starkey. We hired Oscar Chavez Ariata in LATAM, and we hired Kitigawa-san in Japan, because those are areas that were growing for SonicWall, but we didn't have leadership focused with the expertise we needed in those places. And so you put like kind of a ball game, right? As a good New Yorker, I don't know, Yankees or Mets. I'm a Mets fan. I'm permanently
I grew up as a Met fan too. So.
Oh, high five. But like, as you look at your bench, right? Like you need the right pitcher at the right inning of the game. And sometimes you have a closing pitcher starting that's not their right skill set. So just assessing your team and your company and seeing where the gaps are. And that's really important because we always want to think about long term, but you have to start with knowing what you have to know what you need.
Right. I love that, just that whole concept of, looking at a vendor like a SonicWall, right? Way bigger than my company. I've only got 30 employees. I'm sure you probably have way more than that over there. But to look at them and say, well, why did they make this acquisition? Well, it's complementary now to where their business is going. And some of the other reasons that you stated, I think can inspire an MSP to think outside the box a little bit. Sometimes we have made friends with local competitors that are a bit smaller than us simply because we will be glad to give them leads that are too small or not a fit for us. And in turn, they reciprocate occasionally when they have something that's too big for them. So I think that's also another good example of partnership.
I love that. I call that co-opetition. Because cooperating with the competition, but it is nice to have that, right? And especially when you don't directly compete, or to your point, you don't ever want to turn a customer down, but is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it really worth the effort? And you're one of the larger managed service providers. And you look at in our space also the consolidation that's occurring with M&A. I think cultural fit is a big important point there too, right? So you weave in, these are your babies, right? For managed service providers, this is your baby. You started it, as you said, most of the people I meet are technicians. A lot of times their wives are their VP of marketing. Their first customer might have been their neighbor. And then they've grown it, right? Into this beautiful story. It's like the true, and it's a global thing, but the American dream. My grandparents immigrated to this country to like form businesses and to become successful. And I love looking at managed service providers because it relates very similar to how I grew up, and that hard work and entrepreneurial spirit and that hustle and grit is so important. And then you just need to know if you work this hard and your team is your family and your customers your family and your vendors partners should be your family, because you have to have a relationship where you know and like and trust each other, then if you do go through M&A, whether you're the acquirer or the acquiree, then you need to make sure that you have a cultural fit and a long-term vision that aligns with what you've built. And I think that that's a very important thing that some people forget, because money is important, of course, but if you want to stay in this, if you want to keep working, if you want to sunset and do something else, like, what are your intentions and how do you either partner or provide that so you have a scaling future for your company?
So you said something there at the end that I'll touch on really quickly, but for everybody listening, right, there is an end game for all of us. We're all going to exit our businesses one way or the other, right? Either by choice or dying at our desks. Hopefully, no one is ever going to. But in order for us to all achieve the right success, and listen, it does a lot of times come down to money. To enable us to, like you said, sunset or move on. This is why sales and growth and the right kinds of revenue are a really important part of the MSP story and our journey. So I think, Michelle, you're 100% right. And even just bringing in the term culture into the equation here as well, because you want to build something that can be resilient and strong and even outlive us, right?
Right. It's your legacy. I would 100% agree with that. You put all this time. I was talking to somebody this morning who works for a very big vendor who will remain nameless. Okay. And I said, it doesn't matter if you're at a large vendor or a small startup. Culture matters. And if people don't leave companies, they leave bad leadership. And if they don't feel that they have a seat at the table, that they have inclusion, that they are heard, then that causes sort of a little bit of frustration for some people that are lower in the organization, lower in the company. And so I think culture is so important, not only in, we talk about the Great Resignation that happened and that people can work with anyone, anywhere. And, how do you keep loyal talent in your company? How do you keep customers who have choice now? They can have a lot of choice. How do you make sure that they choose you and they want to work with you? Whether you're an MSP or you're a vendor, we all are in the same boat, meaning that we need to make sure that our partners are happy. You need to make sure your customers and employees are happy, et cetera. And we need to make sure that we're really looking at that culture and looking at how we conduct business together, our transparency, the trust that we provide each other, being authentic and truthful. I started as an engineer also years ago. And when I started, I remember being a sales engineer was scary for me because I thought, well, we have to sell all these things and hit your goal. And one of my first lessons was when the engineer I was shadowing went in and said, you don't need that. Like, I could sell it to you, but you don't really need that. And so I'm not going to waste your money. And I left there and I said, well, why wouldn't you sell him that? And he said, I could sell him something once, but I wouldn't gain a relationship for life.
Correct.
And if I'm not honest about like what your needs are, and that's why I say kind of assessing that, I can sell you anything, but I want to make sure I'm selling you the right things for your needs that are going to help you so that I can retain that relationship.
I love that example. That's awesome. There was another little nugget of wisdom in there, Michelle, as you talked about how a vendor's success is, tied to the MSP success. I think as MSP, sometimes we lose sight of that. Like, I think of SonicWall and say, what would they care about little old progressive computing? Like, what are we, we're nothing to them, right? But we aren't nothing to them. We're by the way, we're a SonicWall shop, and we're something to SonicWall, right? Because the more product we sell, and I think it's also in their interest, SonicWall's interest, to make sure that we're successful as well. So looking at our vendors for help with creating process or sales strategy or upskilling, I think is a great way to fill in those gaps where we may feel a little lost. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I would say every partner out there matters to me. If you're a one-person shop or you're, grown to be 100 people or more, like I we know that from me and for the SonicWall team, we truly care about our partners. We're 100% channel. We actually just relaunched our Secure First program based upon partner feedback. So our CEO, Bob Van Kirk, had a directive and he said, I want everyone to come to our leadership meeting with one thing in mind. It didn't matter what part of the organization you were. If you're a product manager, if you're an engineer, if you are in customer success, or you're sales or marketing, what is most important to our partners and how can we help them? That was from our CEO down. So culturally, we have created partner advisory councils, technical advisory councils of very different partners of different sizes around the world. And we've listened and learned. And you have to do that. You have to do that with your customers too.
Yeah.
What's working? What's not? What can we do to be better? And it's an elephant in the room, but if you don't know that there's a problem, then they could be shopping for your replacement and you wouldn't know it,
Yep.
right? And so not everyone's going to be candid and open with you. And it's very important to have that level of trust and communication where you can share with each other. And so I spent kind of like my world tour. Just saw you last week at Robin Robbins. So that was fun, great event. But going out to events, going out to see partners, talking to our councils and getting their feedback. And so we, based upon that feedback, we completely redesigned our program for the first time in 8 years. And we're also changing our roadmap and we made 2 acquisitions, all based upon feedback from our partners. So we lowered our rebate threshold so more partners can earn rebates with us. We started accruing marketing development funds because we want to co-brand and co-market and co-sell and co-innovate with our partners. Like that's very important because that helps you reinvest back in your business, those rebates, MDF dollars. And to every partner out there, I work for 2 pretty large vendors in my life. And I can tell you that a lot of people do not utilize MDF, and that is a wasted opportunity. You should definitely, if a vendor gives you MDF, use it because it helps your business grow. Figure out how they can partner with you, come as a speaker with you, provide a template for success with you, right? Whether it's a creative idea like a, Top Golf and you're going to do a speech beforehand, or you do like cyber news and brews where you go to a brewery and you talk about like the threat report and what's been going on there so that they can understand the opportunity. So I've seen a lot of creative ideas, but definitely lean into that. We also really focus on managed service providers now. So people don't always realize that. And so our whole program, whether you're selling switches and firewalls and access points, or you're selling recurring revenue, we now have built those programs together so you can earn tiers together. And then also we have flexible consumption, billing in arrears, and we make it cancel anytime because we know that we want to make it much easier for our partners to do business with SonicWall.
So you mentioned MDF, and we could probably do like a whole show just on that alone, because I think that's one of these things where when I sit with my peers and we talk about things, very few of us seem to leverage that well. So we may have to put a pin in that one and come back to that at some later point. But if you're listening, think about, I think what Michelle is saying here is, talk to your vendors, engage with them, ask them about MDF programs, and, they're just not going to throw money out at you. But, work with them to develop programs where you can leverage MDF. Michelle, I want to switch gears because we're getting close to time. We still have a time for a few more thoughts and questions here. We had a little bit of a revelation here years ago where we realized that we didn't have a good sales process. My business partner and I felt like, hey, we're good people, we're smart, we're personable, we can get out in the community, you put a prospect in front of us and, we could probably turn them. But we didn't know what we didn't know. And what we didn't know was that our sales process was awful. So can you just give us maybe a little bit of thoughts around where do you go to create a good sales process? Who do you get help from? Are there systems out there, books? Sure. Let's talk about sales process versus just having good sales skills.
Do you mind if I ask a clarifying question first?
Sure. Yeah.
What do you think made your sales process awful?
That we didn't have a process. How's that? And we were doing things like just, emailing a quote. Like, here's the quote. Like, and just, it was sending the wrong message, or we weren't necessarily focused on value, where it became more of a conversation around price. And then as we were growing and as the industry matured and we got more and more competition, it became that. It just became price discussions. And it wasn't until we retooled our process to say, well, we're not going to talk about price, especially over email. Like, we'll present that in person. So we had to change our process a bit in order to be more successful at closing deals.
Yeah, no, spot on. I love what you just said. I'm glad I asked you to clarify, because I couldn't agree more. And I'll say, coming from a vendor, let's start there.
Okay.
Most people, what do? They sell on product, on speeds and feeds, on price, on discounts. And what I'm trying to do is create a cultural change and say, sure, we can be that much faster or that much better or that much more secure in these particular ways. But there's a lot of competition, and people don't buy on price alone, and they don't buy on product alone. They want value. They want an outcome. Yes. So the key thing, I think, for anybody is to first, like they say, like God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Like,
use them in that proportion, right?
Yes, use accordingly. Like, listening to your customers. So, that age-old question, what keeps you up at night, right? If you ask anybody that question, I think you'd be surprised that the answers are fairly similar, right? And you probably have people that would say, again, assessing your end customers and your personas that you're targeting, and the verticals and the industries and the geographies, they probably have very similar pain points, very similar fears. When a giant threat happens and everybody knows about it, from, your grandma who's not technical at all, there's fear, right? And so we all know it's not if, but when something's going to happen, something's going to go wrong. I think that's probably right now the most important fear that everybody has is, what about my confidential information? If a attack happens to a small business, 60% of them go out of business. So this is a huge pending threat. And I think understanding from their lens what is important to them is the most important thing. But again, not an assumption. It's having that conversation and letting them, and kind of mirroring right to that point. So what you're telling me is, and you're affirming every step of the way, right? This is your needs. This is your issues. This is what's keeping you up at night. And then, without selling them anything yet, right? You've just done a lot of digging and listening, and you're in your mind thinking, well, what are the things that we offer, the services, the products, the needs that we offer that can help them compensate and complete that situation? Now, I think a few things. One, when I was consulting, I happened to be consulting during the pandemic. And so I had been hired to do channel strategy for vendors. And then quickly that pivoted to say, well, how do we sell to anybody if our partners are not able to sell right now, right? So what can we do to help empower and enable them? And so I worked on this social selling program. And I think this is so important and so missed, because we talked about sales aptitude for managed service providers. I would also say marketing is a huge Achilles heel for probably 90% of the MSPs I talk to. Yeah. They don't think about it. They don't think of it as important. Here's my thing. Marketing and sales,
or we do it poorly, but yes, keep going.
Yes. Yeah. And unfortunately, and I don't say that disrespectfully, but it's just kind of in earnest, marketing and sales goes hand in hand. You need to build your brand, to differentiate yourself from the competition, to understand the persona that you're seeking to work with, and to know where you are as a superpower in your sweet spots, so that you can kind of market around that. So think about, like old school, like dialing for dollars, picking up the phone and calling you, and the gatekeepers that happen, and how many people work remotely, and how many people get just spammed everywhere. Like, I'm getting spammed on LinkedIn. I'm getting spammed in my text. I have somebody trying to buy my house every day. I'm like, leave me alone. Block this call, block that call. So you're not safe. Like, everywhere you go, your phone is a computer. You have email on your access. Everyone's trying to get to you. Everyone wants to buy something, but nobody wants to be pitched to. Right. So how do you change that to stop selling at people, to stop like pricing at people and telling them what's so great about you? What's in it for them? That's
There was something you said earlier that really resonates well with me, and I just learned to ask questions, right? But like you said, to make the conversation about them, what's important to your business. Like you started with the question of what keeps you up at night. My advice would be also to just change that question around. I mean, it's the same question, but just ask it in different ways, right? What are you trying to achieve here? Like, what would be something that would get in the way of that growth? And by the way, don't be afraid to make note of or go down that conversation around things that aren't necessarily in our wheelhouse, right? There might be some challenges that business has that we can't directly help with. Maybe not today. Maybe we know somebody that can help them. So those are all, like, I just love getting into a business conversation. The other thing that I think MSPs make a very big mistake is not recognizing that they own and operate a business too. Why do we put ourselves in this weird category of like, we're not as special as our customer's business? We are just as relevant as they are. So bringing that relevance into the conversation. I know you have a few thoughts about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's where the relevance and the thought leadership, I mean, so there's an assessment on LinkedIn. I think everyone should take it. It's free. It's just, so they're trying to sell you probably LinkedIn Navigator. You don't need to buy LinkedIn Navigator, but just go to www.linkedin.com/sales/SSI, stands for Social Selling Index. It tells you four things. It tells you about your network that you've connected with. It tells you your brand. It tells you your thought leadership, and it tells you if you're building relationships. And so what does that mean? It means, are you connecting with the clients you have today? Are you connecting with prospects, both online, digitally, whether it's Facebook groups or whether it's, on LinkedIn or wherever they might live? And are you connecting with people in their industry that are potential thought leaders and gatekeepers, so that you can kind of share information with them? Because if you're sharing in a vacuum with your old high school friends, that's not going to sell you your customers. You need the right prospects in your network, whether it's physically or otherwise. Secondly, it's going to say, are you posting? So I say there's several different types of people out there. There's the voyeur. They go on every day. They look at everything, but they don't comment. They don't they don't share. That's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, I think
a lot of them. The lurker, right? Yep. There's the lazy liker that goes on and just likes a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And if I saw you at Robin Robbins and we had a great conversation, you said something amazing, would I be and walk away? No, I would never do that. Yeah. But in social media, we lose ourselves. We lose our authenticity. So then there's the third type of person, which is the thought leader. And that's somebody that's making blogs, making videos, writing articles, sharing, things that they found and their thoughts behind it, and just understanding. So, and I use this example because if I had to pick up the phone and call a customer every day, or 10 customers or 100 customers, but say I have, in my LinkedIn, I have 21,000 connections. I'm not saying everyone has 21,000 connections, but if I make a post, my one post
can reach all those people, right?
Correct. One to many. How long would it take me to call 21,000? Would I ever do that?
No. Probably a lifetime, right? And not just those 21,000, right? Even the connections that they're connected to, especially if they're engaging by commenting or reacting to your post, or even resharing, right? That's I think I totally agree on everything you just said.
You're fishing where the fish are, right? And in the end of the day, does your network reflect the type of prospects that you want? And does your thought leadership reflect your superpowers and what you do really well and how you can help them in that journey? If you're doing those two things, I think you've set yourself up for more success. And understanding it's not a spray and pray, understanding that you're very intentional about going to those Chamber of Commerce meetings, connecting, getting, instead of getting a business card, connect with them on LinkedIn, instead of, just kind of trying to do that a little bit differently.
Follow up. Right. Even if you're not great at creating posts, what I usually tell people is then just engage in somebody else's post, right? Comment on it, think about it, be thoughtful. Like you said, don't just, sit there and just, like and run away, right? That would actually, I love that analogy, by the way. I think I'm going to do that at the next conference. I might, somebody says something to me, I'm going to go and then run away. Right? This is a joke,
You
right?
should do it. I want to see the reaction.
What
We're
their
gonna
reaction is, right? It sounds silly and maybe even, dare I say, funny. Um,
right.
uh,
But we do it all the time on social
but
networks,
that
which
is
is
exactly
fun.
what we're doing. You're 100% right. I'm so using that. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's my big nugget. But Michelle, there's like so much that we could talk about. But unfortunately, we're just out of time. Really appreciate the insights. But that comes, we're at the end of our discussion on cracking the growth formula. Michelle, thank you again for joining me today and helping lift our industry by sharing your wisdom and experience. Super quick, how can people reach or find you?
Sure. I mean, you can start with LinkedIn. I'm Michelle Ragusa-McBain, and you can even email me at mragusa, Ragusa at SonicWall.com. If you are a SonicWall partner, reach out. I'd love to hear how we're doing. If you're not, I'd love to tell you how we'll meet and exceed any competitor, because we really want to work with you. And we're excited to have that partnership. But even if you just want to ask some questions or just have a network friend, I'm happy to be that.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, again. And thanks to everyone for tuning in to our series, Game Changers, Innovative Thinkers in the MSP Space, graciously sponsored and presented by Axcient. If you'd like to learn more about their awesome BCDR solutions and products, you can contact sales or sign up for a free trial right on their website, www.axcient.com. Just let them know that Robert sent you. Until next time, live long and prosper.
Thank you.